Hey, this video is going to Jordan Peterson. And Jordan, I bet you've watched my video, so please answer this. I really respect the work you have done, but I'm trying to understand your position on identity politics.
This is Tom Clark at Unfurled TV. So a few weeks ago, I did a video about Black Pigeon Speaks, and he was going after Jordan Peterson in a way that, I couldn't understand, and that some of the criticism that BPS had for Jordan Peterson, I felt was unfair. In a nutshell, as far as I could figure out, Jordan Peterson doesn't approve of identity politics, and so BPS launches into some straw man, according to me, and ad hominem attacks on the professor and the ideology of individualism. As I said in that video, I think BPS believes that individualism means that you can't be a member or identify as a member of a group, and that's not what individualism means at all. If you believe in individualism, and in particular the American style of individualism, you are a member of a group. Yeah, even if you don't recognize that you're a part of that group, you are a part of that group if you hold those beliefs. So anyway, American individualists aren't opposed to group politics per se. They are for certain rights being out of the reach of the mob. The mob, regardless of its size, doesn't get to take away that from anyone. Now, that's my shorthand way to describe the ideas of American individualism. But essentially, it doesn't mean you are against having an army or a navy or borders or taxation or unions or religious institutions or political parties. American individualism doesn't stand for any of that. So anyway, I couldn't figure out why Black Pigeon Speaks, why you would have a beef with Professor Peterson or individualism as a concept. I mean, Professor Peterson defends Western culture. American individualism is kind of the bedrock of Western culture. So I'm not sure what the beef was. I couldn't figure it out. Well, after I made that video, I came across a video from Paul Ramsey. I believe he's in the alt-right. I'm pretty confident that he's in the alt-right. And he wants a white ethno-state. I'm not sure if he wants it in the U.S. or Canada or somewhere else. I don't know where he wants it, but I think he does. He published a video on his YouTube channel, Ramsey Paul. It's not a ram with an S, it's a ram with a Z, Paul, all one word. And the video, it was titled Jordan Peterson and Identity Politics. And I'm just speculating that the issues that Mr. Ramsey raised are the same, or pretty much the same issues that Black Pigeon Speaks had with Jordan Peterson. Anyway, I'm going to answer the questions that Mr. Ramsey has for Professor Peterson. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the first clip I have of Mr. Ramsey.
Hey, this video is going to Jordan Peterson. And Jordan, I bet you've watched my video, so please answer this. I really respect the work you have done, but I'm trying to understand your position on identity politics.
And then Mr. Ramsey shows an article on somebody did an interview with Jordan Peterson, and we'll just go through what was said. The interviewer asked, "You never worry about the things that are said by your fans?" And then Jordan Peterson answers, "Oh, sure, I worry about them, but I have irrefutable evidence that I pulled thousands of young men away from the attractions of the alt-right. Part of the core information that I've been purveying is that identity politics is a sick game. The left plays on it on behalf of the oppressed, let's say, and the right plays it on behalf of nationalism and ethnic pride. I think they're equally dangerous. The correct game, as far as I'm concerned, is one where you focus on your individual life and try to take responsibility for your actions." All right, so this is the kind of statement that Black Pigeon wouldn't like to see, I would think, and definitely Mr. Ramsey has problems with. So let's go a little bit further into this.
But what the hell is identity politics? I really don't know. So I looked it up. I used Wiki. If you look at the definition, it's pretty damn broad. So broad is, I would say, any type of political activity is by definition identity politics.
And now I'm going to answer that question, and I think Jordan Peterson would agree mostly with my answer. I can't read his mind. I hope he chimes in and clarifies things with you. But this is my thinking on it. Yeah, I agree with you about the Wikipedia definition. If anybody goes and takes a look at it, it includes everything. So it's way too broad to be useful in any meaningful way. And when I talk about identity politics, I'm talking race, gender politics, especially when you go way too far with them. Now, when you go too far with them, that's a good question. I'd say it's somewhere when you start thinking it's a good idea to start suppressing the natural rights of your own citizenry, such as deplatforming somebody, such as initiating violence against those that hold a different opinion than you. Something along those lines. But for sure, for me, it's radical politics based on this regressive intersectional stack.
I don't know how you can be against identity politics based on how it's defined.
Yeah, that's how you're defining it because Wikipedia defined it that way, and I'm not using the term in that way. Maybe I'm wrong for not using the term in that way. Maybe you're right for using the term in that way, but I am not using the term in that way. Wikipedia is not going to tell me which pronouns to use, and Wikipedia is not going to tell me what identity politics is if they're going to use such a ridiculous definition. I think I'm using the definition that seems to me that it fits the concept of identity politics in the minds of the average person, in the minds of the people that are, say, in the WalkAway movement. So whenever I use the term, just convert that to, suppressive race and or gender identity politics. That's what when I say identity politics, that's what I mean. And if you do that, you and I will be talking about the same thing.
Now, I assume you're really just opposed to what you would consider kind of evil or destructive, wicked identity politics, which you would claim to be like gender or sexuality or ethnicity, like the alt-right. And I get that. So, but still, you need to specify that.
Well, point taken. Although, look, I'm against going to ridiculous lengths in explaining oneself. That's for me, and that's for you. That's a benefit that I give to everybody. For example, I could go after you for not clarifying which definition you're using when you say nationalism, for example. Go to Wikipedia, look at nationalism. There's 20 types of nationalism. Which nationalism are you talking about, sir? You should know better. You're a smart man. You should know that to define your terms, before you enter. No, I don't think so. I don't think that that's right in this case. Jordan Peterson wasn't in an academic paper. He wasn't making a doctoral thesis or anything like that. He was interviewing somebody, getting interviewed by somebody, and I presume most likely it was going to go out to the general public. And nobody's going to put in a 10 million line quote on what he means by not nationalism, but by identity politics. So, yeah, I think that you can ask for clarification, and hopefully you can get that clarification if he's not too busy, if he's available, if he finds out about your question or whatever like that, or somebody else ask it for you on your behalf. But anyway, he's probably a busy guy, and he's probably hard to get a hold of, and he probably can't respond to everybody that wants a piece of his time. So I would like to know exactly what he means as well. But to act all high and mighty about him not using a definition or defining his terms when he's talking to a newspaper guy, that's not fair. It's not fair. I'm not doing that to you. You shouldn't do that to other people. It's not fair. So let's just treat each other fairly. If you want clarification, understand, please ask. I can't guarantee that I'll see your request if you ask me, let alone Jordan Peterson. The only problem I have with your request for clarification is that, it's kind of passive aggressive and it was hypocritical. And not only that, I'll prove it because I've tried to contact you on 2 or 3 occasions through different means. I think through Twitter, I think through your YouTube comment sections, and you haven't bothered to respond to me as far as I know. You're probably busy. I know I'm busy. I don't just do YouTube videos, so I'm busy as well. But anyway, I've tried to get a hold of you. You haven't responded to me. Yet you're trying to hold Professor Peterson, somebody that you might expect is also busy. You're trying to hold him to some kind of crazy standard that you can't live up to yourself.
The second issue I have is I think you're using a straw man argument in your response because you're basically saying people need to get away from identity politics and focus on themselves, improve themselves as individuals, the whole make your bed thing. And yeah, I agree with the part everyone needs to take responsibility for themselves. You need to improve yourself. But the problem I have with that is I think it's a straw man argument, meaning I've never seen people that are working in identity politics to say, if you're part of our group, what this means is you no longer have to make your bed. You no longer have to educate yourself. You no longer have to work hard. You no longer have to have character. I've never heard that said. I've never heard people on the alt-right say, hey, just because you support white identity, you're part of the white race. That means you don't have to do anything. You can just eat as much as you want. You can get fat. You can just be lazy. That's all you need to be is white. I've never heard that. I've heard our enemies say that's what people on the alt-right believe, but I've never heard anyone on the alt-right really advocate that.
Yeah, including from me and Professor Peterson. I don't argue that. I don't think he argues that. And yet you claim we're using straw man argument. You see what I'm saying? You create an argument that I have not made, that I have not seen Professor Peterson make, and then you thrash that argument. That's an argument between you and yourself and not between you and I, not between you and Professor Peterson. So what I have said, and Jordan Peterson is more famous for saying it, but what I've said is before you go out in the world and fix the world, learn how to fix yourself first. If you can't fix yourself, how arrogant you are to think that you can fix the world. Now, the people that I tell that to and the people that Jordan Peterson tells that to are young people. They shouldn't just... They don't have competence and experience and enough education to be leading the world because they're not yet competent. I'm not asking them not to be concerned. I don't think Jordan Peterson's asking them not to be concerned. I'm not asking them not to educate themselves. I don't think Jordan Peterson is not asking them to educate themselves. He's an educator and a counselor. So, I'm talking about, and Jordan Peterson is talking about, developing some competency before trying to impose competency on others. I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous. Okay, it's not good for a young person to obsess over politics to the point where they think it's a good idea to suppress free speech. So yeah, Jordan Peterson could be a little more clear from time to time, and I think he has been from time to time on this issue, and I think you've missed it. That he's primarily talking to young people, and when he's talking to people that are in government, these are people that I would say in my mind, these older people that haven't matured. I mean, they're older, but they haven't matured and they haven't become competent. So yeah, they've been elected, but that's about all that they've done. And anyway, every time I speak on this subject, or Jordan Peterson speaks on this subject, you're apt to summarize your thoughts into chunks that respect your time, respect the other people in the audience time. I'm not going to offer you the entire Library of Congress on any issue that I'm talking about at any given moment. I'm going to give you some sort of summary of what's in my head, depending on the venue.
You're implying that if you're involved with politics or identity politics, you can't at the same time work on improving yourself.
As a possibility, as it being possible, one can certainly be involved in identity politics, even as I define it, and be improving yourself simultaneously. You can do those things. What I'm saying, and what I think Dr. Peterson is saying, that it's a horrible idea to be at the activist level at this time when you're young. You don't know crap as a young person. I mean, especially given our coddling culture, and our Marxist public education system. I'm saying it's dangerous not only to society, but to the young person's mental faculties. It damages you. It damages the psyche or the soul or whatever you want to call it. That activist attitude is going to retard your development as a young person in becoming a competent, respectable, and productive member of Western culture. There's just no doubt about that in my mind.
The third one is issue I have with your against identity politics is well, good luck with that.
Yeah, if you go by Wikipedia's definition. By the way, as far as I can tell, Wikipedia is just a useful idiot for, postmodernist and cultural Marxist, all those deconstruction type of folks, because almost all of the articles seem to be defining things so broadly that the terms are so elastic as not to be useful. Yeah, I'm not against ordinary political associations. I don't think that Dr. Peterson is either. It's just this radical, suppressive gender and race warfare stuff that we're talking about. Well, I guess I would include also class warfare and competency warfare. I mean, those are the dangerous identity politics currently in play in university and Western society at large. So those are the issues now. And those are the ones that I'm trying to address and that I think that Dr. Jordan Peterson's trying to address. He's not saying, don't read Amnesty International's literature. He's not saying that. So, yeah, you're going to have people aligning to politics, young people, and identifying with political movements and whatnot. That's human nature, and it's inescapable. And what I'm suggesting is that the youth should be actually adopting American-style individualism. I think that's what Dr. Peterson is advocating for. He calls it radical individualism, I think, but to me, that's just American individualism. Quit being coddled. Don't let others coddle you. Take responsibility for your life. Yeah. Believe in that mobs shouldn't destroy people's lives. We have institutional things in place, and you don't just willy-nilly dismantle those when you're young and you don't know what the heck you're breaking. That's a bad idea. It's good to go ahead and adopt an ideology that, as long as that It's not a poisonous one, and it's not one that requires you to be, a crazy activist, unhinged. You don't need to do any of that. You can adopt an ideology, but you can adopt a political philosophy, but just keep it on the down low, and as you learn more and as you educate yourself more, then you can start upping, your advocacy. But you never want to up it to the point that you become absolutely unhinged. So.
And in the same way, we can't eliminate, I don't think, identity politics by just saying it's a bad thing, don't do it. Because humans, I think, and I know you're into this evolutionary and how we're developed as people, and you're a psychologist, so you can maybe confirm this, but I think we're group animals. Most of us are anyway. And we tend to like to work with each other to get a specific goal done. That's politics. Now, with identity politics, if you really don't want to base it, let's say, on ethnicity or religion, you can get away from that, but you have to have nationalism.
Well, I would agree with most of that, except that I don't agree with the Wikipedia definition of identity politics. But certainly, if you have a society that can't decide what the social norms are going to be, then you're going to have unrest, and it's not going to be good. I am offering an ideology to get behind, and Dr. Peterson is offering an ideology to get behind. It's the primary one, in my opinion, that distinguishes Western culture from other cultures. It's called individualism. Individualism is a political idea that you can identify with. And that's the one that I support, and I believe Dr. Peterson supports. I do not support politics primarily based on race, gender, or class. I do support politics primarily based upon merit, freedom, and free markets. And I would add that when I talk about nationalism, I'm talking about I support nationalism that is based on those concepts, merit, freedom, free markets. I don't support fascistic or Marxist nationalism. But other than that, yeah, nation states can serve and should serve this critical role that you're talking about. And if you happen to live in a nation whose ideology you don't agree with, well, hopefully you'll be able to migrate to a nation that you do agree with. Having different nations protecting different cultures is a pressure release valve for disaffected peoples. And it makes the world interesting. It makes perfect sense that different societies, different cultures, they've organized themselves in this way. And I'm glad that they have.
And that brings me to my final question, and I tweeted this to you and you haven't responded, and I can understand that to a degree, but as you know, avoidance as a coping mechanism is not really effective, especially if you're trying to be intellectually honest, because people, they're going to hear this and they're always going to want you to answer this, so you just can't ignore
it. All right. I'm not engaged in the use of a coping mechanism, but I thank you for your diagnosis. I think that's what Dr. Peterson would tell you. I'm certainly not. Look, to be honest, and correct me if I'm wrong, you advocate for a white ethno-state, and I don't want to spend my time arguing against that. It's my time. I don't want to argue against that constantly, or being associated even with that kind of debate. I really don't want to be a part of it other than to denounce it, and then I'm out of there, basically. It's not my job to necessarily debate issues that aren't important at this time, in my view, okay? You might think it's important. I don't think it's important. The reason that I don't think it's important is because I don't see, and you said this earlier in your video, that white nationalism or the alt-right, whatever you want to call it, as having any teeth. It just doesn't have any teeth. So why would I spend my time fighting against it constantly? I'm not going to fight against it constantly. It's eating up my time. I could better be going after the real problems in society, and that is the left right now. The left is the primary issue. The left is the one that's bringing down Western culture. The alt-right isn't doing it. The alt-right isn't bringing racism back. They can barely put together a parade or whatever you call it, a march. So, you know, I'm not going to spend my time on it. I'm not. And Jordan Peterson shouldn't spend his time on it either, in my opinion. He should spend his time on the people that are actually doing damage to society. Don't you agree? You just want him to join your side, or to give your side some, I don't know, publicity or something like that. Look, you can promote your white ethno-state, your white homeland, all you want. You know, and if I see it becoming a big problem, then maybe I'll spend more time on it. But right now, I'm just going to hit this 1 or 2 videos on it, and I'm done with it. And to be very frank and very honest with you, I think it's a damn good thing that you don't have much power. Okay? If that's what you want to know from Dr. Peterson, he's probably going to tell you the same exact thing. He probably thinks it's a damn good thing that you guys don't have much power, but because you don't have much power, it's just not productive to go fixing the little problem in society when we have a huge problem to solve with what's going on with the left.
And you seem to have a double standards with some of your identities. Some identities you do not speak out against. At least I haven't heard it. And one of the identities that I brought up is Jewish identity. The Jews they're proud of their heritage, their people. I don't have a problem with identity politics, so I don't have an issue with this, but they are.
Okay. I want to be really clear about this. I don't have a problem with white majority nations, Jewish majority nations, Japanese majority nations, African majority nations, Arab majority nations, or Latin majority nations. What have you? Purple majority nations, orange majority nations. It doesn't matter. I mean, I don't have a problem with any race or ethnicity having a majority in a nation. It has to happen after all. I mean, it's something that cannot be avoided. What I have a problem with, and I think what Dr. Peterson would have a problem with, is when the majority, whatever nation you're in, when that majority abuses its own people, I have a problem. Abuse. That's the problem. That's when I start having a problem with my nation and with other nations. In my nation, I think that I have more of a right and a say to get in there and say things about my nation. But I also have a right to say that I think that like what's going on in Venezuela is ridiculous. The guy, what is his name, Maduro or something like that? The guy's a thug. I have a right to say that. Just like the Russians and Putin and all of that stuff have a right to buy Facebook ads and try to influence the American voters. Why should we be able, Americans, try to, influence votes and minds across the ocean, but somehow it's a crime for them to enter the marketplace of ideas in our shores? I mean, that's stupid. So yeah. Anyway, I want to get back to your specific issue. Look, you may have a problem with Jews. I assume that you do. I don't. I don't see the Jews as a monolithic tribe that is abusing people in Israel, Canada, or the United States, or anywhere on the globe, okay? Now, I don't know. There might be some Jewish bankers that are doing some bad thing. There might be some Jewish people in the media and Jewish people in think tanks or whatever that, are lined up against me. But I think that there's Jewish people on my side too. So I'm not against Jew. It's not against the Jews that I have a problem with. It's a problem of ideologies that I have a problem with. Okay. That's why I don't speak out against the Jews. I don't see them as one evil thing in the world. I don't. I see them as individuals with a lot of different perspectives. I think that's how Dr. Peterson views them. With the alt-right, you've defined what your views are. I know pretty much that you want a white ethno-state, right? Okay. So I'm against that. So I'm going to speak out against that. If you're an intersectional feminist, I kind of know what your ideas are. You've told me what your ideas are by adopting that label. So I'm against that. I'm going to oppose that. Definitely. Right. But I don't care what color your skin is if you're an intersectional feminist. And I don't care. It's not about the color of your skin. It's about what's in your head and what you're doing to make things worse in the world.
My position is you're always going to have identity politics, and if you don't engage in identity politics, whatever your identity is, you're probably going to lose because the other people will engage in identity politics.
Okay, let's not use identity politics here. Let's just use Western culture. So I agree that to have Western culture, American-style individualism, you must, as a group, defend it. I do not agree that you have to adopt a white identity to defend Western culture. Don't agree at all. I'm saying adopt American-style individualism and defend that and defend this culture because this is a great culture. It's the best the world has ever known as far as I'm concerned. Now, that's my opinion. I could be wrong. People will have other opinions, but, I think there's a lot of people that agree with me. And now that they're seeing countries across the world cracking down on free speech, and in America, it's basically the one place in the world where they really can. I mean, they're trying to with their corporate censorship, but it's not going to last much longer. I'm confident. So this is a great culture. It's got a lot of the fundamental principles of this culture are just dynamite, right? They're just great ideas, and I'm willing to defend it.
I think it's more of a trick of our enemy to try to say, oh no, it's wicked for you to engage in identity politics because it's inherently immoral. Meanwhile, they engage in identity politics. I think it's a trick just to keep us weak, and I reject it. Unless you could come up with a good argument why it makes us stronger to not engage in identity politics when our opponent is engaging in it. Talk to you guys later.
For me, you just stated the most significant problem that I have, and probably Jordan Peterson has, with the alt-right. Blacks are not my enemy, sir. Jews are not my enemy. Native Americans, not my enemy. Arabs, not my enemy. Asians are not my enemy. Latinos are not my enemy. People with ideas in their head that they want to destroy my culture, well, those people, I would say, I oppose and will oppose them strongly. And if they want to get violent about it, I will defend it with violence back. But if they just want to use ideas, I will use ideas back. The color of the skin doesn't have anything to do with whether or not a person is my enemy. It doesn't. Now, people from those groups that hate whites and seek to harm and demonize whites in Western culture, yeah, I oppose that. They're being immoral. Groups that band together for the purpose to suppress the natural rights of other groups, yeah, immoral. I oppose that. I'm not opposed to the alt-right because it's made up of white people. I oppose it because of its ideology. That they think, or I believe that they think, that other races and ethnic groups are to be seen as the enemy. And I simply am not going to become immoral and see other races and or other ethnicities as my enemy just to combat a portion within that group that have bad ideas. I'm not going to go to war against an entire race when I have an issue with some people within that race and within my own race that have the same problem. So I have a problem with black nationalists. I have a problem with white nationalists. No difference, right? If you're a Native American or black or Asian or Arab or Latino, and you want to stand with me at the border to defend American individualism, you're my ally and my friend, my great friend. If you're a white member of Antifa and you would kill me or my family, my friends, or my countrymen to impose a Marxist or a totalitarian state, yeah, that guy, you're probably my enemy, right? You see where I'm trying to get, right? The ideology is what is important, at least to me, at least to Dr. Peterson, I believe, not skin color. The alt-right is obsessed with whiteness, and I'm obsessed with justice and freedom, and I'm happy to fight alongside other races and other ethnicities to obtain, keep, or defend or regain it, right? Freedom and justice. That's what I'm about. The bottom line is this. If you don't love freedom and you don't love justice, but you're the same race, I don't want you in my home. Your race is meaningless to me, right? But if you love freedom and you love justice, then you are welcome in my home. This is a struggle about ideas, not colors. It's that simple. All right, so let's sort of take it back to where this began, and that is the issue that Black Pigeon Speaks had with, or has with, Jordan Peterson. I think his issue is the same issue that Mr. Ramsey has, and that is the number one thing is that there is just a fundamental disagreement between them as to what is meant by identity politics. And even though Mr. Ramsey assumes, I think correctly, that Professor Peterson has a much narrower definition than, say, what Wikipedia says, they still want to argue that all politics is identity politics. Well, I reject that. Dr. Peterson, I think, rejects that. No. Yes, if you use Wikipedia's definition, yes, but we're not saying that. So quit trying to say that we're saying that. If you want to replace whatever you think we mean by identity politics with some words that summarize properly what we're thinking, go ahead and do that. Just be fair and honest about it. But when we talk about identity politics, we're talking about the suppressive race warfare, gender warfare, meritocracy warfare, class warfare stuff. That's the stuff that we're talking about when we talk identity politics, okay? Basically, as far as I can tell, BPS and Mr. Ramsey, they're just not going to accept, for the sake of argument, the narrower context that I am using and that Jordan Peterson is using identity politics. As far as I can tell, they're just unwilling to be charitable on that issue, all right? I don't have any problem accepting whatever definition that they want to have for identity politics for the purposes of an argument or a debate between them and then sticking with that definition for the debate. But when it's done, I'm not going to, when the debate's done and then I go out and I talk about identity politics, I'm not going to use their definition that we use for the debate. I'm going to use my definition, right? The one that I think that most people have in their heads. Well, I expect that BPS and Mr. Ramsey should be able to do the exact same thing. They should know, they should see what Jordan Peterson means by identity politics. So then Mr. Ramsey goes on to suggest that whites should adopt a white nationalist identity. Now he doesn't say that particularly, but I think that's what the alt-right is about. And he says we should use identity politics. When he says we, he means the alt-right, and the alt-right, as far as I understand, is a white nationalist identity. The deal with Black Pigeon Speaks is he seems to avoid going that far. I suspect, though, that he feels exactly the same. Otherwise, I would expect Black Pigeon Speaks to come out and say that the solution isn't white nationalism or it isn't the alt-right, but we should go back to the Constitution and the principles of individualism espoused in the Declaration of Independence. That you would think would be his argument if he was against white nationalism or the alt-right. But he doesn't say that, and so I'm tentatively thinking that BPS is also, a white nationalist. And maybe he's thinking that a violent revolution is the way forward if the U.S. doesn't get the immigration issue solved. Maybe that's what he's thinking. I don't know for sure, but that's my guess. So Black Pigeon Speaks and Mr. Ramsey both have a bone to pick with Professor Peterson, if I'm right, because he does not favor white nationalism as an ideology. I really can't think of any other reason for either of them to be against his valiant efforts to defend Western culture. I mean, he's put himself out on the line, you're right? He's just not willing to adopt white nationalism. Now, I'm happy to amend my tentative thoughts regarding what Mr. Ramsey and BPS actually advocate for. I mean, I'm doing a lot of conjecture here, I readily admit. But, if they would go ahead and reach out and give some clarification on exactly how they feel instead of dancing around the issue, or if anyone else that's in the know, if they could come forward with any things that either of them said that really shed some light on this, I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, I think I'll leave it there and just ask everyone to take care, and thanks for watching.